Bit of an interesting one today. A couple days ago I was invited to a Zoom meeting on the new Call of Duty Warzone anti-cheat. There were 4 or 5 other content creators in there, and whilst there's no obligation from me personally to make content, they did reveal a ton of info about it and were surprisingly transparent on how it works. So I wanted to get this information out there because I feel like the community should know a lot of this stuff. The top and bottom of it is that when Chapter 3 of Warzone starts, that's the launch of the new Pacific map, COD is releasing a new anti-cheat system alongside it, plus other developments in their security posture. The name of their new anti-cheat security group and this collective effort is RICOCHET. On a basic level, this encompasses 4 different things. The first one is game server improvements. Second is backend data pipeline improvements. The third is matchmaking improvements, and the fourth is a kernel driver level anti-cheat solution. Following the rollout of Ricochet in COD Warzone, this will all expand into the rest of the Call of Duty space, starting with COD Vanguard and future titles. The main thing driving this incentive is to add more security. In the past for Warzone, the developers have not used information private to the dedicated servers to validate things, and that's because it started out as a client-based listen server game. But over the past year or so, a lot of work has been going on behind the scenes to separate the servers from that personal client-side functionality, and that in particular to start with will give a lot of protection for the game against cheaters. As for the kernel level anti-cheat, this will monitor any systems or software on your PC that interact with the Call of Duty EXE. It will maintain control over what services are and are not allowed to do that, and it's not meant to look at anything else on the user's system, and it's just been designed to safeguard the COD executable. It only runs while COD is running too. That means that it starts up when you load the game, it runs in the background, and it will stop running when you close the game. The devs told us that they're also massively expanding on back-end telemetry too. This means that they're recording a lot more data than they previously were and developing advanced tools that look for patterns. They said, however, that they are conscious of concerns about banning very good players, and that's something that they're looking not to do, and there will be human evaluation of these things. So this recorded data is supposed to bring more depth to an investigation and to inform those people reviewing it with everything that's possibly there on what the correct action should be. Another angle to Ricochet is this new trust-based system tied into matchmaking. The theory behind this is that this new level of data collection will give the developers ways to look and determine which players that they trust and how they trust them, and also how they can keep trusted players separate from untrusted players. So in theory, rage hackers should mostly be rage hacking with other rage hackers and not too much with other people. On a high level, the goal of that is to make sure that long-term trusted players are pulled away from untrusted players who are yet to prove themselves. A couple of other snippets that the developers revealed were as follows. They stated that repeat cheaters are the biggest problem that they've had with Warzone and its free-to-play nature, but they are working on ways to easily identify repeat offenders and working on ways to change processes to make bulk account creation and reselling of accounts a lot more difficult. A functioning streamer mode will be added to the game too, allowing you to obfuscate your name over the network, so everyone on the server will see a random name rather than how it is at the moment, which is just on your client, and that doesn't really achieve anything at all. And the devs are hoping that this new iteration of streamer mode will come to Warzone around the launch of Chapter 3, the Pacific. A matchmaking delay feature is coming. This adds a random delay to the time after you click the button to search for a match and then when it actually starts matchmaking. That's going to be great for content creators to minimize stream sniping and harassment. And then there was a little bit of a roundup before the questions and answers section started. The developers on the call reiterated that anti-cheat isn't magic. So as soon as they release this, cheaters eventually will come along and circumvent the system. The game on PC will never be 100% clean. If you're a PC gamer, you probably know this, but this is a new concerted effort from the team to combat cheaters. And the purpose of the kernel level driver for COD is to help them continuously evolve and iterate so they can respond quickly to new cheating elements as they happen. Now then, the Q&A section, this was really useful as it allowed us to ask some more specific questions and the devs answered everything in good detail. Here's what we learned. Upon testing these new anti-cheat systems, no performance loss has been noted, so frames per second and server performance should be as normal, and they elaborated on why this should be okay a bit further. Basically, the existing protections in the user space of the COD EXE are now moving into the kernel driver space, and one of the biggest issues that they previously had is that the more savvy, advanced cheat developers are moving to the kernel space and hypervisor space too. So in essence, those cheats had escalated privileges on a user's machine. So up until now, the anti-cheat systems and checks in place have been fighting on an unequal footing, and those existing user space protections were in the user space because the devs didn't want to escalate a privilege war on the operating system, and they didn't want to have more access to someone's PC than they thought they needed. But because cheat developers went there, they've got to go there too with their anti-cheat. However, the new kernel software isn't adding protections or telemetry that hasn't already been there, and that stuff has been tried and tested and true in the past, but it's taken all that stuff and putting it in a spot where it can be protected from the cheat developers, and it can help protect the COD exe access too. So with that in mind, they aren't anticipating any performance drop. There will be a whitelist of tested and approved software that will be allowed to hook into the COD exe. OBS, what most people use to record and stream their games, would be something that they would likely have on that list, although they weren't 100% sure in their response to that. And the kernel driver team is doing testing at the moment with third parties so they can expand on this list of software. For example, some players may have accessibility problems with vision, hearing, functioning limbs, etc. And those people may rely on third-party software that helps them access the games and control them, and they're trying to discover all of those things before they launch this. They admitted they probably won't, but they are taking a lot of efforts to discover as many of those as the anti-cheat system rolls out. CRONUS and Zim devices were brought up here too. These are devices that controller players can use to modify recoil and aim assist on console platforms. Some of the tech that they're working on now for server-side detection will pave the way for detecting people using scripts and modified controllers. They say that this is an ongoing battle that they're well aware of. For example, if they detect a no recoil script, they ban it, it could then be changed, and then they'll have to adapt and detect it again. So attacking it like that, it's a bit of an arms race that never ends, but they said that the real way to deal with those input devices is something that they're striving for, and that's working with first parties like Microsoft and Sony to talk about what they can do about these kind of things and detect them at the hardware level. So some kind of hardware authentication or encryption, that's what they've been doing. And they said that they haven't had a whole lot of success talking to first parties as of yet, but they are continuing to push on that, as that is the final nail in the coffin for those devices. Ultimately, they know about it and they're making progress, and based on a few reports that I've personally read online, the Zim and CRONUS didn't work at all for the Battlefield 2042 beta and another recent multiplayer game on PlayStation 5, so perhaps developers are taking a stand against it now, and the war against those devices will come to an end soon. The block player list having a 200 player limit maximum is a tricky problem to fix. They say that it isn't as straightforward as just making a number bigger, but it potentially could be a thing for future titles. And then there was a discussion about how you become a trusted player and will there be any transparency about that. So the policy for this is what they're trying to work out right now. So they want to make sure that they catch people who might just turn cheats on for a small moment and then turn them off. And they want to try and understand new players as best they can right when they enter the game for the first time. So there's a lot of work that they're doing here to understand those things and score players appropriately right off the bat, because they don't want to impact the new user experience, as that's really important to them. But if it's a new user on their 50th account cheating again, then they're definitely not going to have a good experience, and they should pick up those cheating patterns straight away. The end goal is that it shouldn't affect new users in any way, this trusted matchmaking, and if it does, they should now be able to quickly detect that they're not a cheater. And similarly, if someone has been playing for 1,000 hours, for example, on a trusted account, and then they start cheating, they can quickly drop them as a trusted player and put them in that untrusted bracket. But there's not going to be a group of players or a single player that can never move from one group to the next. There's ultimate fluidity with it, and there's not anything in place that will make someone untouchable. Everyone is under the scrutiny of this. And as for the transparency, at the moment there's no plans to show your trust rating for now. They're trying to work everything out, and if it comes to it down the line in the future and it's helping to maintain a healthy trusted player pool, and when this system is ingrained and known by the player base, maybe they'll do it then. But they just want to make sure that it's working first. It's a possibility in the future that you could see if you're a trusted player or not, but they're not planning on it right now. And that's pretty much it. It was a really eye-opening, informative chat. Only lasted about half an hour, but big thank you to the developers and community managers who invited me. Super cool to be involved with that and just get this info straight from the horse's mouth. As I said earlier, and as the devs said, anti-cheat isn't magic. There's always going to be cheaters, especially with a free-to-play title. It's going to happen, and especially for the fact that it's COD Warzone. It's one of the most popular FPS games on the planet. But something about this seems different to me, and over the lifespan of Warzone so far, there were times when it felt like nothing was happening and the anti-cheat just wasn't effective at all. But at least this is a new initiative, and it seems like there's been some serious planning, consideration, effort and money put behind it. So fingers crossed it works well and it cuts down on the cheating massively. Everyone wants a fair playing space. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. So with that said, thank you for watching, guys. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.